All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the NFL Alumni's coverage of Super Bowl 59. I'm Bram Weinstein. We're presented by Pacera. Better is possible with Thomas Dimitroff, the former GM of the Atlanta Falcons, now in the analytics world of the NFL. It's great to see you here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, analytics in the NFL is kind of, sometimes people want to fight it, but it is the evolution of what's going on. We know that, right? You got to be open-minded to it.
Yeah, why don't you tell everybody what you're doing these days in that realm?
So I'm the president of Sumer Sports, and Sumer Sports is a data football analytics company. It is a company that is a combination of subjective scouting. We have 25 former NFL people involved in it, and then the objective side of all the data out there, and we're a combination. So we're a really interesting third party that comes to the table with a lot of information. We sell to the NFL, and we sell to the NCAA. Those are our clients. We're excited about it. A lot going on.
The fans, the public, are you talking to them as
yes,
well?
Fans in public. We have our site. There's quite a bit of information available on sumersports.com. A lot of really cool stuff going on there. So it is the wave of the future, as we know. We just think that we can be on the front edge of it. And we're trying to continue to convince all of the GMs and the head coaches, like, if you grasp this, it's not black box. That's what I want to say. It's not pressing a button and moving forward. It's about an augmentation element. That's what data does for us, right?
Okay, so boil it down for me. What would a GM be looking at if they used your service?
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is roster management. So we would, the GM would be looking at our service and our data breakdown of all the players that they're looking at, whether it's free agency or the draft. And it really allows them to determine what the value is through all of our data to say, let's go after this guy in the draft, let's go after this guy in free agency, and at so many different levels. That's really breaking it down. There's a lot going on that way. And I think a lot of GMs, they just need a third party that, is different from their own scouting departments to be able to compare. It's a juxtaposition tool is what it is in today's world. Too many people, though, in the NFL and in the NCAA are a little bit unsure of how to use data, and that's what I've been doing the last 3 years. I haven't learned to model or to code. What I have learned is implementation of data, and I realize that literally everything you do in football today, you can apply a data metric to it to compare. It doesn't mean you go with that marked grade that comes out from the data. Yeah. It just gives you a really good conversation point, and then to say, let's go back to the drawing board on A, B, and C, and X, Y, and Z. That's what I love about it.
How do you quantify the subjective? If you're going to put those two things together, how would you put a data analytic on subjective feeling about players?
Well, I mean, the perfect idea is for every position that we're grading, I'll use this as an example. Let's say there are 30 metrics that we're looking at, position specifics on a quarterback. We attach a grade, a 1 to 10 grade, the scout does, I do, whoever's doing it. And
human eye point of view.
Human eye, yeah. And then we have an algorithm right now that we're working to complete right now. That's going to be a line item right next to that the algorithm is stating the same thing. So we'll take all 30 of those metrics. Agility. Okay, here's our eye agility saying he's a 7. Very good. And then, but the algorithm is saying that he's a 5. That doesn't mean we go with the 5 again. It's a really good spot for us to be able to determine what that is. So we have to have a combination of subjective and objective because that's what's going to give us efficacy ultimately in our algorithms.
Plus, you're picking people. You got to get to know them.
Yes.
Right? This isn't just about a number.
That's right.
Right.
No, you got to get to know them, and that's the biggest thing, right? I tell everyone all the time, and you get 32 general managers around this table right now. They raise their hand. Everyone will say two things. They'll say, "I've made my most mistakes on exceeding need or wanting to push so hard for the need." And then the other part is because of character. Because most of us won't, as good general managers and evaluators, aren't going to miss the athleticism on a player and the movement, but they miss on the character of the player. Not all are bad. Some just lack passion. Some lack drive. Some whatever it may be. That's what we're still working on in data, and that's a tough nut to crack.
So you were a general manager. It wasn't that long ago that you were the head of the front office with the Falcons. How far different is the information from what you had at your disposal then to just whatever this period, 5-10 years later now?
Well, of course, Dan Quinn well, your involvement, of course, in Washington, and Dan and I, we both, as you know, we got fired back in 20, right? That's 4 years ago. Yeah. I think it's changed drastically. And I always say if I were to ever get back in, I ended up interviewing for the Jets in the Tennessee job this year, and I thought if I ever got back in, the importance of being able to implement, the importance of having someone as a chief of staff, for instance, or somewhere fairly high in the ranking to be able to deal with and interact and help implement properly is vital. And you would never have seen that before. I'll go back to my early time scouting when I first got in the business. If you were a scout that came to the table with a report and you're reading around all these old boy scouts and you start pulling out some old box score, I'm not even talking about advanced analytics, you start talking about that, they would boo you off the table. They'd say, like, you don't have a good enough eye because you're relying on data. Think about how reverse that is now. If you come to the table, usually in a report, and you're trying to sell it to your owner or sell it to the staff, and you don't have elements of data backing it, you're kind of coming up like, hey man, you're kind of doing half a job here. So I think that's an interesting transition over the last 30 years, basically.
Indulge me on Washington for a moment, because you know Dan Quinn. What they did felt so far ahead of schedule to flip over half of the team. He comes in, new general manager, and to get as far as they did, what was just your kind of viewpoint of how that accelerated so fast for them?
I think Dan is the kind of guy that everyone responds to well. He's just got the personality that, not only the players respond to, the management responds to, people in the building, most importantly, the GM's going to respond well to, and I think the coaching staff, and I think that's what Dan has, right? And the interesting thing was, Dan came in role reversal, right? When he came into Atlanta, I was a guy that had 7 years experience, and he was the new guy. Now, Adam Peters comes in with a role reversal. Dan has that time in the saddle, and Adam's coming in. It's a nice mixture there, and I think they both work off of each other really well. Adam is very talented. Adam has a really good understanding of evaluating talent. He's been around great organizations, as you know, in his time in of course, in New England with us. That's how I remember him. And of course, then he went to Denver, he goes to San Francisco. I mean, he's a well-rounded guy, and this is ripe for him to be in the right spot. And because of Dan's personality and his go-get-it sort of passion, I just think it's really ripe for a lot of success in the future.
Last thing, since we deal with a lot with the NFL alumni, and you have this perspective of finding players, nurturing their careers, and then at some point it comes to an end. How do you think about the post-career from the viewpoint of an executive in the NFL?
Yeah, I think, are you referring to the players themselves mainly?
The players.
Yeah, look, I think there are so many very talented football people out there, football players out there, former players, that in a heartbeat, if I had my druthers, I would love them on the staff, because I think if they want to truly commit to it, they could be great at what they've done because they have such a football mind. And there's an element of football intelligence there that sometimes I think we might lack because we haven't necessarily have a staff that's full of people that have put the boots on the ground or feet on the ground right in the game time situation. I use an example right now. You heard it recently. Tony Baselli's taken over as the president of football operations at Jacksonville. I think that's great for him. I think a guy like that, we've seen it, with Chris Spielman, right? You're seeing people like that take legitimate jobs. I love that. I think it's important for us to continue to promote that. It's important for the alumni to also know, like, this isn't just a half-time job, and that's that's a big commitment when you come off the field and all of a sudden you're expected to put those kind of hours in there. Aaron Glenn, I had a great conversation with him. we were talking before this whole interview process. I mean, that's a guy that's worked his butt off from as a player to as a young coach to, as a guy who's now going to be the head coach. The drive and desire and the knowledge that he has is unbelievable. I think it's great for the league as the alumni get more involved. I think it's really, really good, and I think we need to continue to push it.
Thomas, it's great seeing you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thanks, man.